Hello, I am Joshua P. Warren, and this is Joshua P. Warren Daily. It's a special edition, actually, because this is one of my last Joshua P. Warren Daily podcasts before I transform into 2.0, shall we say. A new name for the podcast, new format, a new place to find it. It's extremely exciting. It's upgrading everything, so I will be telling you soon what the details are regarding the new contract I've signed in order to take this podcast to another level. So I felt it was very fitting for me to bring onto this edition of the show a guy who has just been a great friend and business partner for 15 or more years. We have been through thick and thin together. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Mobius, and he and I have worked together on many experiments, movies, TV shows, all kinds of radio and podcasting stuff. He was a producer for Speaking of Strange. He's a producer for Joshua P. Warren Daily. He does all the shipping for most of my merchandise. And basically, if I'm involved with a project, then you can bet Mr. Mobius is going to be a part of that project. And he has one of those extremely synchronistic lives. Strange things happen to him. He's kind of a magnet. And so we figured it was a good time to talk a little bit about some of the bizarre things that he and I have experienced together. Maybe you'll be able to relate to some of this stuff, and maybe you won't. You may have heard bits and pieces of certain stories, but we're really going to dig into it, so I know you're going to enjoy this. However, before we talk about that fun stuff, listen, I hate to do this to you because you know me, I am not a fearmonger. I am not a doomsdayer, but I do believe in being a very prepared person. I am one of the most prepared people you will ever meet. I have this, I guess you could call it a superstition, that if I'm prepared for something to go wrong, it won't go wrong. But if I'm not prepared, it will go wrong. So I prepare for everything. And this year, 2020, is throwing everything at us, right? I mean, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, whether it's been, the economic problems, the sickness, the rioting, wildfires, hurricanes, earthquakes. You've got power outages now that are sweeping, especially parts of the West Coast. You have people there, especially in California, they have these rolling blackouts. Who knows what else is going to happen over the next just month or two as we get up to this very stressful election here in the U.S. Whether or not you think that a lot of the bad stuff happening is being intentionally created, or if you think that it's just sheer old bad luck, or you think Mother Nature is pissed at us, whatever you think is going on, unfortunately, for a long time, we have known that the U.S. power grid, well, not just in the U.S., really the power grid in most countries is very vulnerable, and we're very dependent on it. And so you might want to take some steps right now to reduce your dependency. And, I'm not telling you this as some kind of a commercial, but years ago, I created a company called the Sunshine Simple Solar Generator Company. And it's because I got trapped in a blizzard at my house in North Carolina for over a week. I was unprepared, and it sucked. That's one of the reasons I moved to the tropics after that. And but then I got to the tropics, and the power was going out all the time because Puerto Rico has a notoriously fragile electrical system. So I wanted a simple solar generator that I could keep with me that would allow me to have independent power wherever I went, and it has been a lifesaver. And in fact, we've sold these things all over the place. I eventually sold the company to Mobius, however, because he is the engineer who actually was making the machines. It made sense for him to really take the main reins for the company. And so I want to talk to all of you a little bit right up front here about how easy it is for you to get prepared and to become energy independent, considering if you wait until it's too late, well, then it's too late. So that said, Mr. Mobius, sir, welcome to the show.
It is fantastic to be here. My first ride. Fantastic.
So before we dig into to the generator stuff and the weaknesses in the power grid and some of that scary stuff that unfortunately we have to face, what's your opinion on what's been happening in this year 2020?
Man, it seems like somehow or another we have really made the system go crazy. I don't, like you said, you don't know whether it's intentional or, we're just having the worst luck. But this year has just, well, I like the way you said it. It's not here to defeat us, it's here to test us and to make us stronger. I think that was the best way to think of it that could possibly be envisioned.
Yeah, I agree entirely that, I, if anybody who really keeps up with my work, they know that I am an optimist. I'm always looking for overcoming the obstacles. I think we can be bigger and better and we can have a really great future ahead of us. But unfortunately, there's no way to improve without some things breaking down and changing. You can't stay in the same place and improve at the same time. So we're going through these growing pains here, and it's an ugly situation in many cases. And so the all we can hope for is to make it as easy on ourselves as possible. So there are people out there, I'm sure right now, who are in an area that is prone to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, people who are, even prone to blizzards. It's already starting to snow in some places. People who just have a bad power grid out there. And maybe they want to get something simple that will give them some energy independence. So if the power goes out, they don't have to worry, they don't have to sweat it. But it seems like a daunting thing. They don't really understand how simple and even how affordable it can be to get one of these. So for people who have never even heard of a Sunshine Simple generator, tell us in the most basic way, what is this thing?
Well, it's a box, and the capacity varies by the amount of money you spend, but it contains batteries, which you can think of, I guess, with a car, it would be like gasoline. And the more, like large car you buy, the more gasoline the tank holds. And in this case, you have to refill your tank when you use it. So outside is a solar panel that you deploy when needed, and it connects by a wire back to this device, and each day it recharges it so that you have perpetually an independent power source. So, and that's in a nutshell. It's a very good description, I think.
And one thing that a lot of people may not realize is that the heaviest Sunshine Simple generator is 50 pounds, right?
Right.
So,
Without, yeah, that's the panel's 10 pounds and the heaviest is 50 for the
so
1800.
I have even seen, you know what, one time the local ABC affiliate there in Asheville, News 13 WLOS, did a story about me and the Sunshine Simple generator. And there was this little petite reporter, I won't use her name, very nice lady though. And I had the Sunshine Simple sitting there on a table, and she reached down and she picked it up. Now she was straining because she was this is a petite woman, but even she was able to pick it up. So just about anybody can lift, a 50-pound generator. It's got some handles on it, or it's got wheels on the bottom, so you can just lift it up and roll it around like luggage. And so it's made to be portable. It's something that you can throw right there in the back seat of your car. You can buckle it in. You can put your solar panels in there. You can run out of the house and take the power with you. And one of the great things is you can use this thing every single day to save money on electricity, or you can just use it in emergencies. It doesn't matter. But literally, you can set this thing up within like 60 seconds. You have the box, you have a cord that you plug into the back of the box, you have a solar panel that you unfold, you plug the other end of the cord into the solar panel, and that's it. You're done. It's that simple, right?
It's that simple. And if you don't want to put your solar panel out, you can actually charge the unit, and it's using next to no power on the electrical power until it goes out, and only throw the solar cell out at the moment the panel when you have a full failure and in an emergency, and that way no one even knows that you have a secret backup. So a lot of people actually use it only for emergencies. Either way, it works great.
I want everybody listening to me right now to think about something, and I mean, really think about this. When the virus hit this year, it never occurred to anybody that all of a sudden toilet paper would vanish from the shelves. That didn't occur to anybody. And so if you have a generator and it takes gasoline or some similar fuel like that, what do you think is going to happen if there is some type of a big tragedy and all of a sudden a vast space has no power? And it may be that way for months. The gasoline is going to be gone. Some of the pumps won't even work because they use electricity to pump the fuel. In Puerto Rico, this was the problem. They couldn't get, when the hurricanes hit, they couldn't even get access to gas, and those people who did have gas to supply, they were price gouging like you would not believe. So even if you have a gas generator, that doesn't mean it's going to get you through a true emergency, especially if it drags on for weeks or months. Sunshine Simple Generator uses the sun. As long as you have some sunlight, even on a cloudy day, it's going to charge all day long. It's completely silent. There are no moving parts. It's safe, and you don't have any smells, no fumes. It's the most harmonious thing we have right now to tap into Mother Nature. And that's why I wanted something like that, and that's why I have my solar generator here in Las Vegas, which is a perfect place for it. We have plenty of sun here. I used it in Puerto Rico. You were mentioning Mobius. People didn't realize that sometimes in Puerto Rico, the power would go out there for days at a time. And I would have these radio interviews lined up with shows like Coast to Coast AM, where I'm talking to millions of people. And I didn't want people to know I was sitting there in the dark on a storm-torn island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, because radio shows get nervous when they hear that you might lose your connection. And so what I would do is I would turn on a little hotspot. I had a little battery powered hotspot so I could at least get an internet signal from space or wherever. And then I would sit there with all, in complete total blackness, my whole neighborhood, the whole damn side of the island in darkness, except for me. I'd sit there, I'd turn on my little lamps, light a candle, and I could get on my computer. I could do my show, talk to millions of people all over the place. I could watch movies. I mean, like, I could run fans. I mean, like, I could do whatever I wanted to. And for me, it was a lifesaver. So, I mean, try to help emphasize to people why even if you already have a generator, you need to have a solar generator.
Well, one of my favorite customers is a retired teacher, and she is just fantastic. And she lives with her 99-year-old mother, I believe. She keeps getting older on me. And she has times when the power goes out and is out so long that the gas is gone, there is no backup. And so she is the best example. She reaches over, flips on her Sunshine Simple. She has internet, she has connectivity, and then she has phone service through her internet. So she has actually used that to call for help in an emergency when there was no electricity and no communications. And she was able to get help for her. And I think that's a fantastic example. You have to have electricity to have communications and light. And without it, you're in danger.
So now, for people out there who are saying, okay, that sounds all fine and dandy, but these things are going to be way too expensive for me to afford. Let's be blatantly honest with everybody. What are the options for buying different types of generators? How much money are we talking about here?
Okay, well, the top of the line unit is $15.95 that we sell. But we
So that's that's $1,595 for the best one, right?
That is correct. Okay. At the moment, though, I'm having to use an alternative case because nobody is open in the country. So we are making things when no one else is. With my hands, if you were here, you would see batteries and solar panels in cases and all the soldering that you're talking about. But here's what I'm going to tell everyone for this show. And we keep having people ask. And the last time we mentioned this, we got flooded with orders, so I'm hesitant. And I warn you, when everybody hits, I will have to catch up with you because these don't exist. They're being created on demand. But my idea for a perfect solar backup unit is a $569 unit. It is a 400-watt output. It has 60 watts. In an emergency, I can get it to fit in a trash can for you, and I'm going to throw in an EMP protection system that turns a trash can into a safe holder so it would survive anything from EMP to nuclear war to anything that could be tossed at it. In an emergency, you can pull it out and you will have power. So this is not on any website. This is something that I am creating for the people that keep through you emailing and asking for a low cost solution. This is it, and there's nothing like it. The little solar panel folds up and unfolds when it needs to be used. It can fold down to be small enough to fit in that trash can. So anybody can handle this. And I think I've created something extremely special, but you have to email us and ask for it. It does not exist yet for sale, probably never will anywhere. I'm making this just for the people who support us.
And this is the Sunshine Simple Junior, is that right?
That is correct.
And how much does
This is
that
the
cost again?
This is $569, and when you ask, I'm going to give you the free EMP kit for it. But you have to email and ask. If you buy it on the site, I don't know that you're somebody who is like one of our supporters. So you have to reach out and ask us for this special deal.
All right, and of course, for people who are a little unclear what you mean by EMP, let me just clarify that an EMP is just a big electromagnetic pulse, and sometimes they happen naturally. It's a big burst that comes from outer space. It happened in the 1800s, and we frequently talk about it's called the Carrington event, and if that same type of electromagnetic pulse hit us today, it would wipe out an untold number of our sensitive electronics, including your cell phone and maybe everything electronic in your house. That's what Mother Nature can do. To make it even worse, though, we know for a fact that countries, militaries all around the world have bombs that will produce a big EMP. In fact, this year, President Trump has been taking measures to try to protect the U.S. grid from such an attack, because if somebody just decided to come over and set off one of these EMPs way up in the sky over your state, then that could be it. It would zap everything that you have. You'd be reverted back to pioneer days. However, your Sunshine Simple Junior or your Sunshine Simple unit will still work as long as you put it in this protective EMP kit, and that is what Mobius is going to help you with and provide for you if you get one of these. So people who want to take a look at these in general should go to sunshinesimple.com, sunshinesimple.com. However, if you really are interested in getting one of these, especially since you can get one of these juniors for $569, do you want people to email me, Mobius, and I'll just forward it to you?
That sounds perfect. That way we
Okay.
know what's going on. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all you have to do is send me an email, contact@joshuapwarren.com, contact@joshuapwarren.com, and I will just forward that right on to Mobius, and then you can talk to him directly from there. So thank you for making that available. And, again, we don't want to scare people, but before we move off of this topic, is there anything else you'd like to let people know so they can prepare?
Well, I think you and I both, this started because of two reasons. One was because you were sitting over there in the snow and you couldn't get your generator to start if you're going to tell the whole story, and
Yeah.
you were not a happy camper.
Nope.
But the second part of the story is we read the book 1 second after, and we thought, wow, what could have been done to have made this have a better outcome? And that was one of our discussions. And we thought, wow, what if somebody had created a solar backup and had EMP protection? That was a very important thing that was not in that book. There was no power. People suffered. We also talked about crystal radios and fill expedient crystal radios made out of razor blades. these can even be used to pick up shortwave radio. So I think that, as we go along, I think we're going to have to teach our listeners how to do these things so that they have survival skills and think like that. It is just, it would take that book and instantly change. You would have information and power. And I think that that's what we should do here is help and empowerment and give people the ability, if bad situations come, to have good outcomes. And I don't see that as being negative. That's kind of like you down in Puerto Rico. You were sitting there, eating popcorn and talking on coast to coast while the whole country was dark. And I think that's the way that you should be able to overcome adversity and turn it into opportunity. So that's my way of seeing things. I am not a negative person.
Well, that's right. We're trying to help everybody. And, if I were a gambling man, and I am, coming to you from Las Vegas, I would say that we still have a ways to go before this year is over. And even if buying one of these makes it not happen, who cares? Just but the worst thing is to sit there and say, I should have done it when I had the chance. And just remember what it was like when you went to the grocery store and everything was gone. Imagine that on an even more intense level. So, well, thank you very much for explaining that to everybody, and we hope that people understand that, again, we're not just trying to hawk a product. If you don't get something from sunshinesimple.com, then just go get yourself one somewhere, okay? Get online, do your own research, and I think you'll understand what a great opportunity this is if you get one of ours. But if you don't get one of ours, get one somewhere, okay?
I agree.
So, yeah, yeah. And by the way, that book, One Second After, of course, written by our good friend Dr. Bill Forstchen, and he is often considered Dr. Doomsday, but boy, he opened a lot of people's eyes to what it would be like in that scenario. He's a great, great guy and a New York Times best-selling author many times over. So Mobius, sometimes talking to you is a little bit daunting when we're in a conversation on the air, because my relationship with you all these years has been so paranormal that it's just normal. You know what I mean? It's like I expect weird shit to happen whenever you and I are together or talking about something or working on a project together. I mean, it's almost overwhelming for me to sit down and try to pick out certain weird things that have happened between us, because there's just too many of them. But I want to start with just one really good example, and you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I have a feeling I do.
Okay, so this is very, very odd, and some of you are not going to know what to make of this, and I'm not sure I know what to make of it. So I'm just going to try to explain this from my point of view, and then I'll let Mobius explain it from his point of view. So everybody who listens knows I'm a very vivid dreamer. I'm used to having lucid dreams, and I dream every single night. I'm aware of what that's like. That's nothing special to me. However, one night, I'd say, I'm not even sure, like 10 years ago, I had an experience in the middle of the night, which was no ordinary dream. It was a completely unique experience. And the best way I can describe it is I lived in North Carolina at the top of a hill, and at some point in the middle of the night, I rose out of my body. And my room and my house looked basically the same, but a little different. In other words, the structures were there, the objects were there, but they had a different color and a different contrast and a different sort of shade. And I moved from my bedroom through my living room over to my front door. I don't know why, but I just knew I needed to go to the front door. In this state, I opened the front door, and there, standing on the steps leading up to the door, was what I have since described as the bird god. Now, this made no sense to me whatsoever at the time. I was not frightened, or I was just sort of mesmerized by what I was seeing, because what this looked like to me was let's say a 5 foot tall blue bird with sort of like little sprigs coming out of its head, sort of like I think certain falcons maybe have that sort of thing. And it had a long, sort of yellowish beak, and it had these really sort of human looking eyes, though, which was kind of unsettling. And the entire thing was just shimmering and sparkling in all of these scintillating shades and colors, that some of which I'd never seen before. I mean, the blue was dominant. There was blue, there was purple, there was red. There was a lot happening around this being that looked sort of like a sunset. But the colors that I have only seen at that moment, well, they defy explanation. How do you describe a color to somebody else that you've never seen in any other context and they've never seen? It's impossible. But all I can tell you is I saw colors that don't exist on a day-to-day basis. And so here I am standing in front of this being. I can see the hill behind him, which went down to a stream, and then it rose up into woods. And again, the whole thing looked normal, but just a little different. It kind of reminds me of how that sometimes, you go backstage behind a facade, and it's like you're getting a glimpse behind the scenes, like I was seeing a different layer of what was there. So anyway, that said, here I am standing there in awe, and I'm speechless, of course, just looking at this creature. And the being communicated with me telepathically. And he said to me, and it was a male voice, and it said to me, "Do not be afraid. I've come to tell you that some major changes will be happening soon in this world, but you will be okay, and you are going to help us understand it." And I just acknowledged that, and then the whole thing kind of faded out. And the next thing you knew, I woke up. It was bright and sunny in the morning, and I was like, what the hell happened to me? I mean, because I knew it wasn't an ordinary dream. Now, listen, I cannot prove to you it wasn't some type of extraordinary dream experience. I mean, maybe it was. Maybe it was a once-in-a-lifetime type of dream. But it was so real that it almost seemed realer or more real than my everyday life is, if that makes any sense. So I was really taken aback by this whole situation and confused and not sure what to think of it. Again, I had no interest in big birds or any shit like that, and I just like why would this happen to me? And so I decided I wasn't really going to talk about it. I mentioned that I had had some type of a profound dream experience, and then Mobius Mobius heard that I had a profound dream, and he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, did you see the big blue bird that flew over your house? Because a big blue bird flew over my house that night." And my jaw hit the floor, and a chill went down my spine. And to me, it's one of the most amazing things ever, that there's no way he would have said that to me if he had not had some type of a shared experience. Now, that's as far as I'm going to take my version of this. Let's hear your version of this, Mobius.
All right. Well, actually, what happened was when I woke up, I heard you say that. To me, in linear time, it was immediately after my experience when you were starting your radio show. And so I sent you a message. I know what your experience was because I sent it to you. And you said, no way. And so we later compared, and it was very similar. But here is my experience. I was dreaming for some reason that George Norrie and a bunch of people, including Joshua, were having a meeting. And it was like in an older home, and I looked out a window and I saw what appeared to be an Egyptian looking, maybe 747 spaceship like craft passing over. And so I went outside to see it better. And at some point, this became a lucid dream, and I was fully aware I was dreaming. But a blue greenish ball of light came down from the ship, and the ship was holographic and it was trying to appear to be maybe like an Egyptian serpent god, kind of a bird serpent, kind of weird shape. But I got the feeling that I was not the first one to have seen this. And in front of me, this ball of green, bluish plasma light became a blue bird god. And it communicated with me telepathically. And it said, I want you to give Joshua Warren a message. And I argued with it. I'm like, look, I am probably asleep right now. I don't know if you are a genuine, creature or what is going on, but I do know that Joshua is going to be very annoyed. He hears tons of people telling him crazy stories, and he's going to hear me telling him a dream about a bird god, and he is going to roll his eyes at me. So if you want to make an impression, you go tell Joshua this message, and you go show this to him, and I'll be impressed, and everybody will be impressed. Because frankly, as far as I know, this is just a really weird dream. And the creature reluctantly said, okay, fine. Turned back into the ball of light, and then went up into the ship. And I woke up sometime thereafter. It was late and barely got the show on. And the first words I heard was Joshua, like, man, I had a weird night last night. I don't know if I was abducted. I don't know what happened, but wow, was it strange. And I sent him a private message, which I never interrupted him when he was on the air. And I said, I know exactly what you experienced. And he said, no way. And from there, you now have known both sides of this very, very strange story. I don't know what it is or how to label it. It defies all reasonable logic, and there's no way he and I saw the same thing. It is so unique and beautiful and undescribable that he and I had a very hard time finding anything even close to it. And I tend to believe that what I saw is exactly what he's.
Okay, Mobius, are you there? Oh, we're having a little bit of a connection problem. Let's see if are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, if you cut out once in a while, we'll just pause for a second, and hopefully it'll come right back. Okay, so for me, that was a life-altering experience to have something like that occur, and then to have you tell me that. I mean, I have no doubt you saw the same thing. Okay, I have no doubt.
Oh,
There's just
no
no
doubt
way.
either.
Yeah,
No way.
and so that's a reality of some kind, and I for some reason was just never really interested in Egyptian gods. And after that, I became really interested, and of course, it took me no time at all to realize that this seems very much like what the Egyptians called Horus, which is depicted as a often blue falcon-like humanoid. They say here online, Horus is the name of a sky god in ancient Egyptian mythology, which designates primarily two deities: Horus the Elder, the last born of the first five original gods, and Horus the Younger, the son of Osiris and Isis. One thing that's weird about Egyptian gods is that sometimes, like, two gods would occasionally combine and morph into one new god, and then they would separate later. So there are all these like odd incarnations of gods. But of course, Horus is supposed to be a very protective deity, which is why people wear the Eye of Horus, which is, everybody's seen that in various forms of art or jewelry, which is similar to casting the evil eye, but basically it's just an eye that's guarding you against evil. And so the more I learn about Horus and what the Egyptians were describing, the more I thought this must be the same thing. And it was right after this that the so-called Arab Spring happened, when the Egyptian government fell and there was pretty much a coup there. So that was pretty amazing. That may have actually been some type of gigantic transition about 10 years ago that was going to have implications that are only now starting to really kick in here for those of us living day to day in the United States. So maybe that was, the catalyst. But nonetheless, since then, I have heard other people out there, like, for example, Corey Good, who is a UFO researcher, talk about what he calls the blue avians. And you can see illustrations of these if you go online and type in blue avian. He claims that there are these blue bipedal bird-like beings that are very advanced and spiritual and good, and they're coming here and they are trying to help us as we go through these dire changes that are occurring. And so there are lots of people out there who apparently are familiar with this unusual being. Call it a deity if you will, but whatever it is, I got the feeling that it was human enough to understand me and what I was thinking and feeling, but certainly more evolved and advanced. What was your feeling about who this being is and where it comes from and how it relates to humans, Mobius?
Well, I heard the same thing that you did with the telepathic, very male voice, and it was very distinct because it was not being heard with your ears. It was coming from within, kind of the back of your head, and it was very unique. But I got the feeling, along with just the voice, that there was a lot of information that you were not even being aware that was being transferred. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but it seemed that the appearance, the way that was appearing as the bird god, and even the holographic effect to make the ship look more biological, it seemed that it was taking a great amount of effort to give this appearance. And I may not understand why, but I don't believe that we were the first people to have seen that. And I think by seeing it, that we were being told a message that others before you have seen what you are seeing now. And this is how I appear to them. And that was my feeling that I got from the experience.
So I agree. When you talk about information there that we were receiving that we weren't even consciously aware of, it reminds me of what our friend Missy Hill calls a download. That sometimes they're in a certain place at a certain time, or they encounter a certain being, and it's just like you literally get some type of information that just shoots into your brain, and it's almost like an instantaneous moment of advancement, mental advancement. And I know, for example, David Icke talks about being, I think, at Machu Picchu or something like that, and all of a sudden, just boom, so it hit him, and he got some kind of download, and that is when he suddenly had all this sort of new truth crystallize before him and went out to become this influential voice, and not afraid to say some pretty darn outrageous things. And so now that we have both told our sides of the story, and I know that we've talked about this to a certain extent before, but I bet a lot of people have never heard us give this level of description, both of us at the same time. I wonder how many people out there are listening who are just going to say, well, what were those guys smoking? Versus how many people are going to say, holy shit, I also have encountered a being like the bird god, and I never even mentioned it because it was so weird that why even try to bring it up and describe it? The only reason I even talk about it is because that you saw it. And that makes it that to me, that's a verification, and that's why I'm sure you asked this being to come and see me.
I did. Who would believe me? I told it. I argued with it, and it seemed to be frustrated that I was not just like going to listen to this message and tell you, but to me, it was the weirdest thing ever. I don't think generally that most people accept that dreams can be transferred, you know? That's not very rational.
Yeah, and therefore, I feel very honored that whatever happened there, even if it was some kind of an extraordinary dream, it's a phenomenon that was real to me. It was real to you. It is real to us. And people have obviously been having this kind of experience for thousands of years with this same being, and it's totally out of place. We were in Western North Carolina. You don't have anything close to a 5 foot tall bluebird running around, okay, that's glowing and telepathically speaking. That's not something that you watch on TV that influences your dreams that night. And so, I mean, it's totally out of left field for something like that to happen. So I feel like that this probably was a true, intelligent, sentient being that would be clearly considered of divine, of some kind, of some divinity, by ordinary people, and it chose to come and speak to us, and it said nice things. So we're pretty lucky, huh?
Yeah, even in the fact of me arguing with it, I could tell that it was frustrated, but it was not unkind. At no point in the experience did it not seem to be a caring, kind being. And I was like you, I was never intimidated. I was never afraid of it. I was a little bit awed by all I was seeing, but even aware that it was within a dream. And so, of course, I was aware that this was not an actual physical experience. And, there was always that chance that even though it seemed so bizarre, that I was having a dream. So it's very unlikely that either one of us would have ever confessed up to this unless we both had co-experienced such a bizarre thing. So
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So now here's something else that I think is important for us to tell everybody about as I just think back on some of these extraordinary experiences that you in particular have had. When people give you feedback and they don't know who you are, and like they're a stranger and they're giving it on the internet. Well, maybe they're either really mean and vicious, and just absurdly mean and vicious because they just don't like the way you comb your hair or something, or they just go really overboard and kiss your ass, and they're just being kind of phony because they don't really know you and they have some kind of an idea of what you are, whether it's accurate or not. On the other hand, people who really know you well can just be very honest with you, and give their opinion because they know that if you're good friends, then you're not necessarily going to get offended. That you can sort of speak truthfully, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of marriages fall apart because people they get to the point where they're speaking a little too truthfully to each other. But I say this because you have always been an engineer. You're the kind of guy who you love to get your hands on technology, and you understand circuits and capacitors, and you know how to solder things. You know how to you could probably put together some type of ultimate survival lab, just picking up scraps and stuff from a junkyard. And so because you have that very pragmatic mindset, when I started really talking about all of the wonderful things that I was experiencing using wishing machines, you were intrigued by that, but you also were very skeptical because this just didn't quite connect with your more sort of materialistic view of how technology and engineering is supposed to function. And I understood that because you were saying like this circuit doesn't make any sense and it doesn't even need a battery, and like what is, and So you, however, are an open-minded guy, and you said, okay, let me try doing some experiments. So if you would tell everybody a little bit about your point of view beforehand, just in case I didn't explain it well enough, and then some of the things that started to show you that, okay, there is something to this.
Okay, I'm very much rational and technical, although I have had some bizarre experiences, so I'm open minded. But the wishing machines, it threw me for a loop, and I was very skeptical. But I've had a very odd relationship with wishing machines. And it started with one time I had this wishing machine, and I found that when I'm emotional and I have an extreme emotional wish and I play with it, I get the best results. And I was out of Coca Cola on a hot night and I wanted a Coke bad. And I made this insanely stupid wish and demanded to wake up to a Coca Cola right beside where the wishing machine was on my couch. And I stomped to bed, mad because, I had, for whatever reason, allowed my Coke, to go out of stock here in the home. And I went to bed, and I absolutely would have never thought any more about it. Even though was a sincere wish, it was a sarcastic, emotional wish, I didn't expect results. The next day, I woke up, went downstairs, and Kuka had come by, our helper and assistant from back in the long ago, and she left a Coke on my couch by the wishing machine with a note that said, I thought, you might want a little treat and I was hoping to see you. But apparently you were sleeping late. And there was a Coke at the exact point I demanded the universe produce a Coke. And I was dumbfounded. But I'm also, if you can manifest a Coke, I mean, you can manifest anything. So I sort of got the idea. And one time I tried another. It was a crazy wish. I don't particularly like the visual elements of the new Star Trek movies. And I made a wish. I wanted to talk with one of the head designers so I could tell him that I hated his crap. And it was a very stupid wish, but like some hours later, I believe the same day on Facebook, I had a person who was talking to me about selling Star Trek materials, and he had a lot of props and stuff, and he currently was looking for a little extra income, and he told me I might want to look at IMDb and see his history, and I had not clicked, and his name was obscure to me, and I went and looked, and I just about laid an egg. He was one of the top producers of the visuals within the Abrams Star Trek movies, is suddenly I'm talking to. And he actually was a very nice guy. I actually ended up helping him to get employment and to sell some things. But I was able to tell him in a very polite way how badly I hated the Star Trek bridge and all of the barcodes and all of these things. And he was very nice. And he said, look, I get paid to do a job. I did the job the way they wanted it, and for whatever reasons they wanted it. And I'm sorry I didn't please you, but thanks for hooking me up. And so it was a very pleasant exchange. But what are the odds of you picking a person that obscure and them showing up in your like messaging hours later? It's just astronomical. So I think the secret is that the intensity of your emotions seem to work to manifest. And if you really have intense emotions, that thing works like magic. And I have seen it now. Sincere or with doubt in yourself seems to be a pollution to make this work. You have to just hit it with pure passion and belief, and that just seems to power this thing up. That's my take on it, and I have no explanation in the universe how this works.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that if you can manifest something as seemingly simple as a Coca-Cola, then you can really manifest anything, because what's the difference? It reminds me of that quote by Yoda, in which I think, in The Empire Strikes Back, he was training Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker had reached a point where he was trying to move something, and it was too big or whatever, and it was probably his spaceship. I don't remember the exact context. And Luke says, but it's one thing to move this little stuff, but I can't move that. It's different. And Yoda says, no, no different. Only in your mind. Only in your mind. And so if you consider that we sort of trap ourselves or limit ourselves based upon what we are used to experiencing physically, then that can hold us back from the full capacity of our mental power being expressed. And that's why I don't know what the limits of the wishing machine are. And of course, I always tell people, look, the reason that I experiment with a lot of different manifestation stuff, wands, prayer boards, potions, pendants, is because I think they all tap into a different part of the brain to help you manifest more completely. It's kind of like, I love listening to music. I love looking at a beautiful picture. But you put those together, and now you have a movie. It's like, so it's not like that you have to just pick one and stick with it. You can combine them all together to create a more profound interaction and interface with the things you're trying to manifest. And that also goes back to what we have discovered over the years, looking into ghosts and UFOs. And of course, you were an integral part of the experiment that I did in Puerto Rico, where we were trying to manifest a UFO, and it was on the anniversary of the WOW signal, and lo and behold, during our window of time at this location, a UFO appeared. It came down to my camera. It created all this interference. It whistled, and it shot straight back up into space. I mean, what in the world are the limits? We don't know. And so we're going to be, unfortunately, I've got a really busy weekend, so pretty soon we'll wrap up this conversation. But let me just ask you, given everything that you have seen now in your life about the way technology works, about the way spirituality works, about the way that a ghost manifests, or a Coca-Cola manifests, or a dream project manifests, what have you sort of taken from, I guess, this whole outlook on life and what is possible and impossible? What is this all about, in your opinion?
Can I solve this up? Well, I would say that any advanced form of technology is indistinguishable from magic. And with that, I think the problem that we have had, and we've discussed this with like people investigating UFOs, you are finally being recognized for the way that you think, because you've always considered that consciousness and their ability to manifest is not based on nuts and bolts. It's based on something far more complex that we need to understand. And finally, this is becoming something that even mainstream science is willing to look at. And so we're beginning to evolve to a different level of understanding. And with that, we may finally unravel some like mysteries that have eluded us till now.
That's very well put, very well said, and also that's why it's so wonderful that we have access to technology that makes it easier for everybody to get a peek into these other realms. And which that's something else I want to touch on here before we wrap up is, for years you have been a night vision expert, and of course you and I created the Paratemporal Night Vision Company, which specializes in producing and making available night vision devices that are tested and focused on paranormal investigation. If you're out to see UFOs, if you're looking for ghosts, you want to get one of our sets. And recently on this podcast, I said if there's anybody out there who's interested in getting some night vision goggles, email me and I'll forward it to Mobius. Well, we got a lot of emails. And then you turned around and said, as it turns out, so many people right now are freaking out over what's happening in our country, and they are preparing for the apocalypse, that all they just bought up all the night vision. I mean, it was like the supply went down really quickly, and the prices went up, and I wasn't aware all that was happening, and so we had to tell a lot of people, like, actually, we're not sure we can get you any night vision, and a lot of people were disappointed. Well, I think we have some good news, because we have found a way to access some excellent night vision, and we're doing some tests right now to make sure we can speak in a very informed way about the capabilities of this night vision. But some great night vision, perfect for UFO hunting or ghost hunting or anything, cryptid hunting, looking for Bigfoot, for maybe less than $500. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, the Gen 3 stuff, I might be able to get it, but people, we didn't really warn them that it's like a $2,500 to $3,000 expense. They're certainly not cheap. They've never been cheap. They are the toys that people afford on the very top. But the last time around, I don't know how much of the email that you saw, but we just had waves of email of people asking us if we could create a $500 solution. And I actually told you at the time I thought it was impossible. And we went looking around because we actually do try so hard when people ask to find the solution. And so what we have found is some super high-end Gen 1, Gen 2 units that almost are up to Gen 3 quality, but are $500. And in the past, this same thing was like about 16 or 17, and I thought it was a very bad deal. And I told people for the difference, you need to jump up and buy the Gen 3. Now, for $500 that we're being offered, this is an incredible value. I still want to check it out. I thoroughly want to keep testing these for a few nights. But if I give you the thumbs up, we will hook everybody up on a really good deal. But I got a few things I want to make sure they do well first. But when they pass my test, they will pass your test.
And another great thing is when you get a set of night vision from us, not only do you know you're getting a quality product that's been field tested specifically for paranormal investigation, but also you get guidance there, because Mobius, you enjoy consulting with people and helping them hook up their cameras to it so they can document what they've captured. You give them tips on how to use them for UFO hunting. You even offer video analysis of UFOs they capture. I mean, it's like you're buying more than just a pair of goggles and then, hey, you're on your own, buddy. You're actually becoming part of an investigative team where everybody has access to you pretty much in perpetuity, right?
Yeah, and I enjoy what you find. And I'm hoping that you find the crazy things and that you find the most extreme examples of something that I cannot explain. I was one of the analysis people for Fact or Faked, and that was one of the coolest jobs. Is we were sent either the stupidest things or the most complex things to figure out, and I loved being able to do the analysis and figuring out what things were. So that's actually the back end, somebody that has all the experience that we have. We've gone out, we've done UFO contests, we've put tons of crazy things in the air, and we filmed them and visualized them through every technology we could. So we're pretty good about spotting what something is and figuring out what's going on from just a photo or a video. And I like the fact that we have that library of evidence that we've built up to logically go back and do analysis with.
So if anybody, once again, is interested in getting like a good pair of night vision for around $500, if you would like to be first in line with whatever we hopefully will have ready for you, Email me, contact@joshuapwarren.com. It's just like I said with the Sunshine Simple generators, and I'll forward that directly to Mobius. So once again, if you're interested in getting a Sunshine Simple Junior, the solar generator for the home for $569 with an EMP kit and all that, or if you want to get a pair of paranormal investigation night vision goggles for around $500, either one of those things right now, this is mid-September, because this is not going to last forever. Email me, contact@joshuapwarren.com. You have nothing to lose. I will just forward that straight on to Mobius, and then he can tell you what the situation is and what your options are. Mobius, before we wrap this up, what do you have any final thoughts? I mean, any big plans for Halloween season or anything in general you want to leave people with before we begin our next big adventure with the new version of the podcast?
Well, I'm always going to be kind of like you. I'm always out doing technology, experimenting, trying to come up with new things, and constantly doing analysis of reality. This is what I live for. So when I'm doing these things and sharing these things with other people, it is with love and passion. And that's what I'm going to be doing going into Halloween. And I also have had the honor and the privilege of being your friend and us working together for all of these years. And I'm so excited to see what this 2.0 is going to bring. I have a feeling it's going to blow everybody's mind.
You know what? I was just delighted with how things were going with this podcast, and it never occurred to me that this incredible opportunity would hit my lap for me to just open up a whole new chapter, which honestly could go a long way toward changing and improving this world that we live in. So I think that may be part of why the bird god came to see us. Mobius, you've always been a wonderful person, a great friend. You're like a brother to me, and I think we are about to embark on an epic new adventure, and everybody is going to be hearing much more from you soon as we proceed. So thank you for being on the show, my friend, and we will touch base again soon.
Okay, there you have it, folks. The eccentric Mr. Mobius. I have heard him described as a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. Great guy. One of a kind. All right, I believe I am only going to produce one more Joshua P. Warren Daily for you. And that will be sometime in the next week, and I will finally explain to you, I will finally describe what is about to happen here when it comes to me and the world of podcasting, and how that I had this truly unexpected opportunity fall in my lap, and why I decided to sign the contract, and what that means for this podcast. New name, slightly new format, new place to find it, and a lot of new fun possibilities. I'm extremely excited about this, and I know that you will be too when I tell you all about it. So here is what you need to do to keep up with me, to make sure that you can follow as we transition into 2.0. Go to joshuapwarren.com. There is no period after the P. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Check out all the cool stuff like the Curiosity Shop, but most importantly, be sure to subscribe to my free e-newsletter. You'll find it right there on the homepage. You just put your email address in there. It takes you 2 seconds. Boom, you hit the subscribe button, and you're done. And then you will receive an instant good luck charm digitally in your email. And I will be able to email you anytime and tell you what's going on, and I'll give you, well, the first glimpse of what is happening and what it's going to mean for you and all of us. Really exciting stuff. joshuapwarren.com. Sign up for the free e-newsletter. So that's it for this particular edition of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. and I will talk to you again soon.